Right, time for a new intro. Dirty Dogs is getting old. Think. Maybe move your arm. Class. Nope.
Hello EFD squad, you dirty dogs, and welcome back to One-on-One Lockdown Edition, where we do a deep dive on whatever sweetens our matchday Bovril. Now I would bloody love for today's episode to be about Bovril, but it's not. But in many ways, it's about a man who draws a lot of similarities with the chronically underrated beverage. Distinctive, bold, divisive. Yes, that's right. It's about every football hipster's favourite Argentinian export. It's the legendary Marcelo Bielsa. It's also about money and time and why Leeds United are running out of both. But I wanted to start on a slightly more positive note. Now, a lot of football channels have spoken about the master tactician at length, and more often than not in glowing terms, and rightly so. He's won Olympic gold with Argentina, took Chile to the last 16 of the World Cup finals, and almost led Athletic Bilbao to Europa League and Copa del Rey glory. And he may stem from the same city as six-time Ballon d'Or winner Lionel Messi, but only one of them has a stadium named after them in that neck of the woods. And it rhymes with Arcello. Doesn't work. Did not work. Forget about Bielsa's recent spells at Lazio and Lille. They were simply glitches. Since then, he's salvaged the unsalvageable. He's raised a ship that had sunk into the depths of League One. Really going for it today. And now, after 37 games of the 1920 season, Leeds sit 7 points clear of third place, having won their last 5 on the trot, defying their penchant for bottling it. Yes, the Premier League promised lands beckon, but COVID-19 threatens to derail what should be a historic season for the Peacocks and a bit of redemption for Bielsa, despite the Championship recently committing to finishing the season. As a result, this video is going to focus on the last couple of years. Let's face it, Leeds are at one of the biggest crossroads in English football right now, and the stakes could not be higher. To help digest this drama, I've split the video into the following sections. Listen up, kids. Why Leeds need to get promoted and why it could be perilous if they don't. How the man Pep Guardiola calls the best coach in the world has led Leeds to the brink of glory. How Leeds have adapted in the face of coronavirus, and why the Premier League would be a better place with a man that can count Maurizio Pochettino, Jorge Sampaoli, Tata Martino, and Pep Guardiola among his acolytes. And if this video does a big fat 3k likes, we'll try and get a Q&A done next week on Euro Football Daily, featuring all your favourite faces, plus Joe. Now, before we go any further, there's obviously more important things at play here than Premier League promotion. Please don't think we've lost sight of this, okay? We're going to leave the serious news to the serious reporters and the health advice to the experts. So for the next however many minutes, let's rest our anxious, weary heads and dive into the world of Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds. Leeds must. After coming so close last season, there's a sense in West Yorkshire that failure's not an option this time round. This isn't just to retain key staff like Bielsa, who's actually in the last year of his contract. Although the club can trigger an extension, it's to secure the long-term future and the finances of the club itself. In 17-18, Leeds reported operating losses of £20 million. That is substantially higher than the £13 million permitted by the EFL per season. Fortunately, the Whites clawed back £18.1 million from player sales during this period, meaning they eventually adhered to EFL rulings. This wasn't a matter of shifting peripheral players though. 15 mil of that total was raised by offloading star striker Chris Wood to Burnley, the season after the forward scored 30 goals in 48 appearances. Conversely, the club's most expensive signing that season was midfielder Adam Forshaw from Middlesbrough for around £4 million, with a further 9 players arriving for modest fees. This increase in personnel also saw a rise in wages, increasing from 20 million to 31 million in Radrizzani's first year in charge, or the 11th highest in the division. So despite parting ways with one of their star assets, it didn't actually create that much wiggle room. And here we see a great example of the tightrope that Bielsa and the club's hierarchy still have to walk to this day, the sale of Ronaldo Vieira to Sampdoria being the latest example. And regardless of how good the coach is, there's only so long you can keep parting ways with your best players before it eventually catches up with you. Just ask Southampton. In total, from 2015 to 2018, which are the financial records we have access to, Leeds reported losses of over £12 million. This was despite turnover rising from 34 million to 40 million post 17-18. This isn't to say that owner Radrizzani is a reckless spender. His track record actually points to quite the opposite. He's already settled debts with the previous owner Massimo Cellino. He bought back the club's historic ground, Ellen Road, from a private landlord, as well as reinvesting in the Leeds United women's team after the previous owner stopped funding them in 2014. What a
mean man.
It appears the people of West Yorkshire finally have a very capable owner who wants to do right by the community as well as the club's coffers. But if Premier League football isn't secured soon, the club may have to change hands again. Gunning for Premier League football is a high-risk strategy, and owners that aren't oligarchs or oil barons will only be able to fund a couple of assaults on Premier League promotion until it starts to catch up with them, basically. This is something that Radrizzani has already acknowledged. In August 2017, the Leeds owner told The Guardian that he'd only be able to fund the project for 5 years unless promotion was secured. If he failed, someone with bigger pockets would have to come in and take up the mantle. And if Leeds don't get promoted, it's widely understood that Bielsa would leave. So the Italian owner and his director of football would have to find a manager of similar quality, refresh their ranks, and build a new team in 2 years. Doesn't really seem very likely, does it? A minor detour. It is true, England's second division generates more revenue than the top flights in Russia, Turkey, and the Netherlands. However, most of that money, and often more than is coming in, is frantically spent trying to escape it. Championship clubs are basically like moths to the Premier League flame, and when one of them starts to overspend, the others have to maintain pace. It's a very vicious cycle. Check out these numbers, all right? In 17-18, wages made up 106% of the revenue across the division, up from 99% the season before. So before any other costs except wages were even considered, some clubs already in the red. And clubs spending disproportionate amounts of money on transfer fees has become commonplace now, hasn't it? Wolverhampton Wanderers breaking multiple transfer records to escape the second tier. In short, making a loss is now seen as part of the process of securing promotion. Scholars call this win maximisation. We call it batshit. Don't talk about bats. This is a game that Leeds are basically being forced to play. However, there is some good news, Leeds fans. For the first time in years, the playing field at the top of the division is relatively level, isn't it? There's an absence of clubs spending mega bucks, with yo-yo clubs like Fulham and Stoke, who have done it in times gone by, licking their financial wounds from seasons past. Again, this is another reason that Leeds really need to maximise this small window of opportunity to secure that sweet, sweet Premier League nectar, baby. Back to the point. So, what would this financial salvation look like for Leeds and Marcelo Bielsa? According to chief number crunchers Deloitte, promotion to the Premier League this year is worth £170 million to a club over 3 seasons, a figure that could surpass £290 million over 5 years should you avoid relegation in your first season. This is why clubs absolutely lose their shit in pursuit of numbers like this. Now it's pretty clear to see why Bielsa was brought in as the highest paid manager in Leeds United history on a cool £3 million a year. Not only is he a man that can secure promotion, but probably someone that can keep them there too without a QPR style outlay. But like I said, there is a sense that this window is narrowing, and this whole situation with COVID-19 has exacerbated the fans' nervousness.
Would I back Leeds to get promoted without him next season? It pains me to say this. No. I think Marcelo Bielsa is the linchpin in this whole thing. And if he goes, I genuinely believe, unfortunately, that Leeds will spend at least the next 5 years in the Championship and go back to mediocrity. You know, the names that he can draw just from being Marcelo Bielsa at Leeds United is ridiculous. And Calvin Phillips as well, he'll go, as he should do, because he doesn't deserve to be in the Championship next season. He should be a Premier League player. So losing him, losing Marcelo Bielsa, I do think we'd be doomed to at least half a decade to a decade in the Championship once more.
I'd like to think that the team will be in the Premier League before next season, but if that didn't happen for whatever reason and Marcelo Bielsa wasn't there, I guess it would depend on other variables such as who replaces him. Would it be one of his coaches? Would they then implement, obviously, the style of play that Bielsa has in place already because it is so ingrained now? Would Leeds look for an external manager who would change the style of play? I think regardless of that, though, I do believe that squad and that team has enough strength and depth to be able to do it, regardless of who's managing. And it would just be nice to think that if it wasn't Bielsa, but please do be Bielsa, that if it wasn't, they would be able to recognise the qualities and where they work best. So, yes, I would back them. But I hope that the season does end up getting finished, and I certainly hope that Marcelo Bielsa is the man that leads Leeds into the Premier League and stays with them.
Now, this is perfectly understandable. This club hasn't been in the top division for 16 years. In that time, they've had 5 different owners, one of whom was suspended from football activities for 18 months, debts of over £100 million, numerous points deductions, and in the last 5 years alone, they've burned through 12 managers. Basically, pre-Bielsa and Radrizzani, Leeds had become a laughingstock. Of course, this makes what the current staff have achieved in the last 2 years all the more bloody impressive, doesn't it? And not only has Bielsa transformed their fortunes on the pitch, but also the culture off of it. He's actually made people, dare I say, like Leeds. How? Leading by example. On the 6th of January 2020, Leeds played Arsenal in the FA Cup at the Emirates, eventually losing out 1-0. However, in the first half, they won over hearts and minds in their thousands with a swashbuckling display of attacking football. I don't know why that was the first word that sprang to mind. Despite fielding a slightly weakened team, actually. Robbie Gotts getting his debut. Well in Robs. They outshot their hosts 14-3 in a blistering opening 45, producing an XG tally of 1.13 to 0.49. Oh, the sweet embrace of XG. How I've missed you. Massive thanks to Arsblog for those numbers, by the way. There is a link to his blog in the description below. Not that anyone was paying attention to the expected goals, to be fair. Apart from little stats whores like us, most people just simply bedazzled by Leeds' guile, ensnared by the Bielsa press, captivated by the technical prowess of his players. The Argentinians' men had 22 touches in the opposition's box, Arsenal mustered 6, Leeds completed 111 final third touches, the home side putting up a paltry 36 in reply. Basically, Bielsa returned a bunch of lads who finished mid-table in the Championship, not going anywhere quickly, into high-pressing, press-resistant monsters who are lightning quick in the transition and capable of attacking overloads that perplex even Premier League defenders. Now the Gunners' star-studded side did eventually wrestle control of the tie in their favour in the second half. But for 45 minutes, Leeds gave us a small sample of what they might be able to produce in the top tier, finishing the game with a superior amount of shots on target, shots inside the penalty area, possession, pass accuracy, passes, tackles. Are you still listening? And the rest of the football community might have been shocked, but Leeds fans certainly weren't. In the Championship this season, the Whites ranked number 1 for shots, as they did the year before, and shots on target, while also conceding the fewest shots on their goal, under 10, which is some bloody achievement. And there's minimal signs of the overplayed Bielsa fatigue creeping in this season. Their work rate remaining pretty much unrivaled up to match day 37, ranking 3rd for tackles despite having the most possession. I imagine if we adjusted the stats to take possession into account, things would get absolutely biblical on who scored. Biblical. Put simply, this is a well-oiled machine. Probably the best the Championship's ever seen. Sorry, Dave Kitson's Reading. If they can't get promoted while producing this sort of output, I think Leeds fans will just have to accept that they're cursed in some way, shape or form. It's as simple as that, really. No logic required. COVID-19 in the 1920. Now, owner Andrea Radrizzani's family are based in Milan, so he had an acute awareness of just how much this would affect the football club from pretty early doors, as well as being one of the first clubs in the country to limit external visitors to their training centre. No one, as of the 21st of March, had tested positive for corona in the squad. Despite this, Leeds still chose to send their players home on the 16th, I believe, delivering bikes and weights to the first team and under 23 players so they could follow tailored fitness routines. Here's Jack Harrison executing it. So it appears the club have been as proactive as possible and taken the necessary steps to keep their players fighting fit and focused on promotion. Did try and get some inside info from old Click that told me the media team said, nah. Why the Prem needs Bielsa. Now, when Leeds defeated Huddersfield in what would prove to be the last match day before the league was postponed, manager Danny Cowley quipped after the game, "I'll be really interested when Leeds go up to see how the Premier League copes with it." How will the Premier League cope? Not how will Bielsa cope with the Premier League. We've seen what this Leeds side can do to Premier League opposition. Unless we forget what his Athletic Bilbao side. Bilbao. Team full of fucking hobbits, is it? His Athletic Bilbao side did to Fergie's Manchester United. This is a man who says there's 8 ways to cross a ball, 11 ways to shoot, 17 ways to defend the ball, and 36 ways to pass it. A man who made his millionaire footballers pick litter for 3 hours. This is a man who divided Argentina into 70 different sections so he could unearth local talent in every single nook and cranny. He's woken a true sleeping giant of the English game from its slumber, brought back the fans in their droves. I think Leeds actually have the highest average attendance in the Championship this season. He's rekindled their passion, hasn't he? The whole region's passion. Quite simply, he is a threat to the existing order of the Premier League. He's expected to take Leeds up, and because he's a manager of such high calibre, he's expected to keep them there. That means someone has to drop out. You've got to love that bit of anarchy. And in the commercialised, predictable world of Premier League football, Bielsa could be the Joker. Now, he's already been the nearly man with Newell's Old Boys in the Copa Libertadores, Argentina at World Cups, Chile in other various competitions, and Marseille in Ligue 1. So let's hope that's not the case this season and in seasons moving forward. Bosh! That's it for this week's one-on-one. Please let me know what you'd like to see in future episodes in the comments below. Remember to like this video, to leave me a comment. I'll be there in the first hour replying to them all. And as always, stay safe and we'll see you around, I guess. Bye.